All right, just to discuss this a bit further, with me in studio now are David Pkosing, the MP for Pokot South, and Opiyo Wandayi, the MP for Ogunja. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Let me start with you, Honorable Pkosing, because this has been a running issue since the introduction of changing the election laws came up. And you even have the foreign envoys yesterday saying that this is not including all parties, all stakeholders, when we're talking about making such extensive changes to the election laws. Why is Jubilee still bent on pushing for this?
You know, Rubadiri and the country is not on normal terms at the moment. It requires that we think outside the box or without the box. And remember, we are under a court order that nullified the election on certain grounds and very clearly on legal grounds, and said, you know, you have to do this according to the law. Now, what are we expected to do? Just to wait, go election in the same circumstances? And a good example, Rubadiri, is this, that they said, what was this alternative mechanism? You know, it was not clear. Electoral Commission was given to use an alternative mechanism apart from electronic. So what was it? And that is why we have amended the law to clarify that is manual. That what you do, you vote. That from 34A, which is from polling stations, which is signed by presiding officer, must find its way to the National Tallying Center. So that our colleagues does not hide into this thing. Oh, you know, the computers were hacked and so on and so forth and so forth. So if the computer was hacked, what was signed at the polling station, it has to come. And that is basically a very clean, a very genuine proposal. Number two, if we say in the amendments that if a presiding officer who is supposed now to sign Form 34A and a returning officer who is supposed to sign Form 34B don't sign, that's not a problem of the voter. The voter has voted. And the person who is doing it, whether willingly or not, should pay. And that's why we have proposed for a jail of 5 times. And it is legal, it is procedural, and the idea of people saying, oh, you know, there's no public participation, we have opened for public participation. So where is this idea that, oh, it's not come properly?
So you're saying
this
is to right a lot of the wrongs that happened in the August 8th elections. So it is valid given that it is a legal route through which Jubilee is going through this. However, there's questions on the timing. Why are you moving so fast to ensure this is done before October 26th?
It's not fast. We are responding to a request. We are responding to a court order. If we don't do that, actually, we'll also be breaking the court order. Our colleagues here in NASA, I think we have given them, first of all, they were elected by the people to come to the debating chamber, to come to where laws are made. You know, they have come there, they have refused. And now they are they are going around, they are doing demonstrations, they are going to TVs and talking in TVs. It doesn't help them. Even if they go to 100 TVs, it won't help them.
So you're condemning the manner with which they are addressing
Absolutely.
Their grievances.
They were elected by the people. They have the command, they have the mandate. Let them come to parliament and debate and give proposals. And remember, so that you give out, these are legislative proposals by the Rubadiri. It is not final. It will either be thrown out or adopted. They have the role to participate in parliament, not in moving around.
Okay. Honorable Wandayi, let me get your take on this. What do you make of these changes and the way with which they're being brought?
No, Victoria, it's very interesting times that we live in. And I must appreciate my colleague, Honorable Pkosing, for his enthusiasm in playing apologist to this, the Jubilee regime. But having said that, one thing you must understand is that matters to do with the electoral laws are very serious. And you will recall, Victoria, that these laws, these very laws that Jubilee is attempting to amend now unilaterally, were midwifed through a bipartisan process not long ago. Remember very well the Joint Select Committee headed by Senator Orengo and Senator Kiraitu Murungi. It was not for nothing. Jubilee then had the numbers. Yes, they had the numbers in the Senate, they had the numbers in the National Assembly. They would have gone ahead and done the electoral reforms on their own, as they attempt to do now. But what compelled them to sit on a round table with us to adopt a bipartisan approach is because of the reality that you cannot ram through the throats of Kenyans electoral laws that will govern how their leaders are elected. So on that account alone, what they are doing is untenable. And this must be made very, very clearly. I saw I read the statement, or I heard the statement from the diplomats yesterday. It's rather mild in terms of telling Jubilee off insofar as this attempt to mutilate the electoral laws is concerned. And again, if you look at these amendment proposals, even casually, you will see the intention very clearly. The intention is to reduce the threshold, okay? The presidential election threshold, to make it very easy for one to rig an election and be declared president and be sworn in. Make it very easy, you see. That is what we are opposed to, and we are opposed to it totally. So
does NASA have issues with all of the proposals or some of them?
Even before we go to the cracks, the substratum of the matter, we are looking at the process. Yeah, the process. Once the process is wrong, we don't need to go into the details, really. Because there is no way, Victoria, you can attempt to change electoral laws 3-4 weeks to an election. Really, it doesn't make sense. Yes, but even if you attempted to delve into the substratum, I've already said that it basically points to a situation where they want to make it very easy to rig an election. But even more importantly, you see an attempt to water down the powers or the mandate of the chairperson of the Iebc insofar as managing the presidential election is concerned. You'll recall that the chairperson of the Iebc is by the constitution, not any statute, the returning officer for presidential election. So they want to make that role of his a collegiate role, a role that will be played by alongside other busy bodies. And they have got targets. They have got people in the Iebc who are user-friendly, yes, who they want to create an avenue for to become chairpersons or to be able to play a role in managing presidential election as the returning officer, which role is not contemplated by the Constitution. So what they're doing is, in effect, unconstitutional. The only funny thing, the unfortunate thing, is that the courts, of course, will declare those amendments if they pass through Parliament unconstitutional. Okay? The only unfortunate thing is that they will have used those amendments to manage these elections. So you see the import. Yeah, and we shall be back to square one, I'm telling you.
Let's look at some of the proposals here, because one is to deal with the process of transmitting votes or the votes each candidate gets. The court must look at both the process and result of an election before determining the validity, binding the Iebc chair as a national returning officer to receive all forms 34A and 34B, validate them before announcing the presidential poll results. That was an issue that NASA also brought up, because the results were announced when not all of the forms 34A and 34B were in.
Correct. But that should not invalidate the electronic transmission process. Remember, in the Supreme Court ruling, it was made abundantly clear to anyone who cares to understand that an election is not just about the results. It's not an event. An election is a process. And that's the process they want to mutilate. I've heard Uhuru Kenyatta a few moments ago rubbishing the issue of forms, that saying that it is the voter who matters. Now, how will the voters' will be protected if the process is not watertight? You see, it actually beats logic, what he's trying to say. You see, that the voters' will is paramount. That is true. But how will that will be protected? Their process must be watertight. And that was the reason why the select committee, the Joint Select Committee, came up with these processes. And therefore, even though you need those physical forms at Bomas, the results should have been transmitted electronically so that the forms correspond. But then, you see what happened in Bomas. When ultimately NASA demanded to see those forms for purposes of our court action, you saw none other than the CEO of the Iebc admitting, way after the results had been announced, that he was not in a position of Form 34As.
So you won't agree that an election is about the numbers too, because that has been the argument from Jubilee. It's not just a process, it's numbers as well. The vote should count.
Let me just conclude. Now, what eventually happened, and that's why the Supreme Court caught them flat-footed, is that in a bid to create some forms, they started working backwards. Now filling forms at Bomas of Kenya and signing for the returning officers. It is not that the returning officers didn't sign forms. They signed the forms. But those forms they signed did not correspond with the numbers they had allocated themselves at Bomas. And therefore, they're working backwards. And that's why the signatures were fake. And that's why the Supreme Court realized that these guys engaged in serious illegalities. And therefore, to answer your question, definitely, numbers matter. Numbers must definitely matter in an election. But those numbers must have a meaning. What do I mean? Those numbers must be protected in a process which is verifiable, which is accountable, which is transparent. Yeah.
So the process underpins everything in order for the votes to be validated.
The process is paramount.
Okay, yes. Honorable Pkosing, because
yes.
Honorable Wandayi raised something very important. He said the last time they talked about these election laws, it was a bipartisan effort. This time around, it seems that it's more Jubilee pushing for this. Yesterday, we heard the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Robert Godek, saying it is international best practice not to make changes to electoral laws without broad political agreement. You certainly don't have that right now.
You see, Victoria, these guys are not honest. They don't want an election. First of all, unless we find where the symptoms are, then we will be talking in whatever, and even do demonstrations. The truth of the matter is that they don't want an election. And now they want to capitalize on the situation where we are in, which is very unfortunate, Victoria, and I want to tell the nation and the country. The unfortunate situation is that we have only 2 candidates for this election. So one of them wants to dilly-dally. To do what? So that we don't have an election on 26th. And then what happens? What happens after 26 if we don't have an election? So they want to dilly-dally so that they force a government out of the constitution. And unless we understand that background first, we will be talking forever. And that is why, Victoria, I have moved to court. I went to court yesterday, and I filed a petition under certificate of agency. That in a scenario where one of the candidates is not interested with the election, that the court should decline its nomination, which was issued through Supreme Court on 1st of September. The court should decline a nomination of that candidate and declare the other one who is obeying the law to be the president, so that we don't keep on going back and forth, somebody knowing that I'm fixing these guys. He should think about the country. And that is why, to answer this question, number one is that envoys have given their opinion. But that's an opinion. And saying that international practices. But there are only 3 countries that have been faced with these circumstances. So it's not, I won't agree with them that it's international practice, because this is not a normal circumstances. International practice, Victoria, comes in when all other factors are held constant. But they're not constant in Kenya. A presidential election was annulled. And there are how many countries in the world? There are only 4 countries in the world. So are you going to say that's international practice? What we are trying to say is that the problems of Kenya needs Kenyan solutions. And we must reason ourselves. And Victoria, we need to reason out of the box, which is, these proposals are not outside the law. And, okay, well, the other one was done in Windsor. It was a big proposal. That was a big proposal. This is not a big proposal. And in fact, it is more or less, if you look at this going further, it is more or less administrative. If, for example, you say, Victoria, that if a presiding officer does not sign Form 34A, that is actually administrative. We find a punishment for that. We are also saying that, what about in an event where, for example, chairman is unable or is not available to declare results? What happens? We are in an extraordinary circumstances. Victoria, what happens if we don't have an election on 26th? So
to water down the Iebc chair's powers is strictly administrative, not political.
It's not watering down powers. It's not watering down powers. Victoria, I'm sure even in this media house, there are processes that if a chairman is not available, that somebody else will be able to step in. This is normal. It is not, in my view, it's administrative. You go, even look at our constitution. It is saying there's a president and deputy president. In an event that the president steps out a little, that the deputy president steps in. What happens with the chairman? And it's only a chairman of the Electoral Commission. He's not the president of the Republic of Kenya. Do you want to tell me that nobody should step in for him? No. It's administrative, Victoria. It doesn't affect the totality of the election process. These guys are not honest. They don't want an election. And that is why, Victoria, just to conclude, that is why we want court to exercise or to make it practical Article 138, 1 of the Constitution, to declare Uhuru Kenyatta president-elect, and we move forward. Then now, we can continue with these guys forever in terms of their amendments and so on.
Honorable Wandayi.
You know, I really get surprised at the logic being employed by my colleagues. You know, if you say that we're basically talking about administrative issues, you are forgetting that you cannot reduce a constitutional requirement to an administrative matter.
Which one is this specifically?
The Constitution itself is very clear that the chairman of the Iebc, the chairperson of the Iebc, shall be the returning officer.
It's not an individual, but the office.
For the purpose of the presidential election.
Yes.
Now, the makers of the Constitution were very clear in their mind that that role should be assigned to one person, who is the chairperson. If you want to change it, go to the Constitution and amend the Constitution. Don't look for shortcuts. And because you know that you cannot have the numbers to amend the Constitution, you want to amend it through the back door by hiding behind the statutes amendments. It cannot work. Let me tell you, Victoria, there's this tired narrative that we don't want an election.
Absolutely.
That is a very tired narrative. And I don't know why they talk for us. We have said many times that we are ready for elections as early as yesterday. What we want are credible, transparent, free, and fair elections that meet the requirements of not only the Constitution, but also the Kenyan people's expectations. So, what is happening, I can tell you. I haven't read his petition, because I don't think it is his petition anyway. That is a Jubilee petition being channeled through him.
Okay.
But let me tell you, whatever is happening currently at County Hall, the so-called ad hoc committee, joint ad hoc committee of the Senate and National Assembly, purportedly looking at these proposed amendments, is a total waste of time. It is an exercise in futility. They can go on through the motions, do whatever they want to do, go to the House and shout themselves hoarse and pass those amendments and let Uhuru Kenyatta assent to them and let them use them for the elections. But I can tell you, the people of this country shall resist.
What do you mean by resist? What will be the next course of action? If those laws are passed, what will be the next course of action, at least for the opposition?
Well, you see, I don't know what will happen with those laws if they pass them. Of course, I don't even know what form they will take, what shape they will take. Okay? But what I'm saying is that because they are not amendments being done in the best interest of the country, they are not amendments whose ownership is grounded on the people will not accept.
From your understanding now, Honorable Wandayi, what will these election changes mean for the election process, for the people of Kenya? From your understanding
I have just said, a cursory look at those amendment proposals, Victoria, tells you that these are people who are just looking for an opportunity to create an avenue to steal elections without being stopped or vetoed by the Supreme Court. That is pure and simple. In plain language, in layman's language, they want to create an infrastructure, a legal infrastructure, to enable election theft to go on without being vetoed by any other authority. That is pure and simple. And the rest are details. You don't even need to go into them. I've already talked about the powers of the chairperson of the Iebc. What their fear is that the current chairperson of the Iebc, for whatever reason, might refuse to declare the Uhuru the winner. That is their fear, I can tell you. So they want user-friendly commissioners to be given the powers to declare Uhuru the winner in the event that Chebukati doesn't do so. Okay? They even wanted, which they have failed to do now in this amendment, they even wanted to interfere with the Supreme Court's working.
And the Supreme Court Act.
They wanted to make it impossible for the Chief Justice to manage the Supreme Court. Yes, insofar as the matter of presidential election petition is concerned.
Okay,
yes.
so we'll have to wait until those proposals are actually brought forth. But Honorable Pkosing, let's go back to your petition, because you want to compel Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka to take part in the October 26th election. And you're pretty much saying that the Supreme Court ruling is binding. Because they were party to this ruling, it says that there will be a repeat election and he must now take part in it.
You see, it's not only one, that is one of the prayers. That's one of the prayers. And it is true. There's a Supreme Court order that there's going to be election within the 60 days. Now it's been given us 26th. And therefore, some of the prayers, and to begin with yours, that if then Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka are not interested about election on 26th, then what happens? Nobody else can give us a pronouncement except court. Because we are saying, look, if these guys don't want an election, because they are talking, and the indicators, Victoria, are out. One, they're mobilizing for demonstrations. Number two, they are saying they're not going to participate. You know what they're going to do? They're going to tell people, we know, that in their areas where they control, and these are massive, they have a massive following, Victoria. So they want to convince people not to come and vote on 26th, and then come back later use Article 183(2) of the Constitution and say that that election was not valid or was not credible because people did not take part. And therefore, we are going back now in this petition and to come to your question and say, well, fine, come to 26th. If they are not coming to 26th, then the court, using its own order, that these guys have now renegated on the order, then they should withdraw their nomination. Remember, Victoria, the nomination of the two presidential candidates now is given by court. And the only person to remove it is court. And once they terminate that nomination, then Article 183(1) comes in. That then in an event that one of them, the nomination papers have been, let's say, taken out, then the remaining candidate should be declared president. That is what, they have now a choice. In court, they have a choice. Whether they want to participate, then they participate according to the Supreme Court order. If they don't want, then let them not incite or subvert the election. Should they subvert the election, they will not benefit from the mistake they are creating. It's very clear now.
Honorable Wandayi, is that what NASA is trying to do, to use their strongholds, have their supporters not vote to invalidate the election? Is that the plan?
Absolutely.
That is in the fertile imagination of the Jubilee.
But Rasanga has written.
Let's allow.
Let me just make my point clear.
Yes.
That's basically in the fertile imagination. What we have said consistently, and we don't mince our words, you know, it's good to be consistent as a politician, as a leader, is that if these elections are not conducted, or there are no conditions to enable them to be conducted in the manner prescribed by the Supreme Court ruling and the Constitution, we haven't said we shall boycott the elections. We have consistently said there will be no elections. And we mean exactly that. But coming back to his petition, sometimes I also wonder the kind of lawyers who give this kind of advice. You know, if you look at Article 38 of the Constitution, I think sub-Article 3, it is the inherent right of every adult Kenyan citizen to offer themselves for election to whatever office, okay? That article, of course, presupposes that it's also the right of every adult citizen not to offer themselves for any election, you know. So this idea of compelling Raila to run or asking the court to declare Uhuru the winner is neither here nor there. It is legally hogwash. I don't want to delve into a matter which is in court. I suppose this matter is in court, okay? But the most important thing to say at this particular moment in time is that the ball is squarely with the Iebc. Jubilee can go ahead and do the amendments. And we have said, if our minimum conditions, the reduced minimum conditions, which is now public knowledge, are not met. I've heard the Chebukati and his team have called for a meeting this morning between my president, Raila Odinga, and the Jubilee candidate, okay, for a meeting. I don't know. I'm not privy to what they'll be discussing. But our position remains the same.
Okay. That
if the reduced minimum conditions are not met, and in addition to that, they have already brought up another idea of changing the laws midstream, then there will be no elections.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, and I'd like to get your take on whether this stalemate, this political will to break this stalemate, but before we get you to answer that question, let's cross over to Sharon Baranga, who's at the University of Nairobi Lower Kabete campus, to let us know what's happening there. We just heard a report that they have closed the school indefinitely. Sharon, what more can you tell us?
Okay. Thank you, Vicky. We are at the Lower Kabete campus where students are already leaving for home after they received a directive from the school's administration that the school had been closed indefinitely. Now, on my left, even as my cameraman is panning, we have the administration police who are here to man the area just to ensure that the place is safe. Just to ensure that the place is safe. Earlier on, we had talked to students from the University of Nairobi in the CBD, and they said that they had planned to have a peaceful demonstration, but they woke up to a message from the school's administration telling them that they have to go home. And right now, I'm joined by students from Lower Kabete who are on their way home, and one of them said that they had not planned for this, so can you kindly introduce yourself and tell us what?
I'm Dickens Chinga. Actually, we are very frustrated. We've been here the whole night, very peaceful. We thought that everything will go on well, because we've been in this school for around, this is the 5th year. Yet we are supposed to finish this course by 4 years. So we are much disappointed the way Mbithe has taken the action of closing down the school, because we just hope that he could use other means apart from the indefinite closure of the school. So we're really asking him to reconsider that. We get back to school, because rumors are going around that we might come January, which won't be that good. So please, something must be done.
And how will that affect you academically?
Academically, so meaning that, yeah. So as it had been planned earlier, we are supposed to graduate, as in to finish school by April next year. So that means that if this semester has been postponed, we got another extra semester next year, which won't be that good favorable to us, as there are so many opportunities out there that we are going to miss.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can you introduce yourself to us and tell us how this closure is going to affect you academically?
Yes, I'm Desmond Rasugu, a 4th-year student in the university. I'm seriously disappointed by what the university management or Senate has done. This is a big frustration because the decision is ideally very unwise. The university ought to have mitigated this by calling a dialogue between the students rather than closing it indefinitely. You understand, this is the first semester we are having this year. There was a lecturer strike, there was elections, and closing it indefinitely means we are coming back in January. That seriously affects our lot, because this year we won't have graduation for those who are supposed to finish school this year. So we are deeply disappointed by this, and I think the university has made a very poor decision regarding this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Those are some of the voices of students from Lower Kabete campus expressing how their disappointment on the school's administration decision to close the schools indefinitely. And now they're not so sure on when they're going to come back to school, on when they're going to complete their studies. And so right now they're just left, waiting to see whether the school's administration is going to pronounce another date for them to come back to school. Back to you, Vicky.
All right, thanks, Sharon Baranga there at the University of Nairobi Lower Kabete campus. After they announced they will be closing indefinitely due to security concerns. That is certainly a story we'll be following over the next couple of days. Let me just have my two guests react to that quickly before we go on to our other discussion. What do you make of this move to indefinitely close University of Nairobi?
I think it is, if it is on security reasons, it is required. And I think it is healthy and it's important. And I'm sure the Nairobi Senate, that is the Nairobi University Senate, must have genuine reasons for that. And of course, Victoria, some people might want some politicians, and we have already seen that clearly. Some politicians might want to misuse our students and our kids by using them, as frontline fighters, for their own selfish interest. And number two, they can also be infiltrated by some other criminals. And therefore, for that to be properly seen, it's better that we have this break, so that then the security and the university can be able to look at it. I think it's healthy.
Honorable Wandayi?
I think it is totally unacceptable.
Everything.
That you would use the old tactics that were being used by Moi in the 80s to manage public dissent. You'll recall, Victoria, that the latest crisis at the University of Nairobi started, I think, last week, when the police brazenly stormed the university campus, including the halls of residence and lecture halls, and bludgeoned students in broad daylight. Even before we are told what became of the investigations to that very unfortunate incident, the university is being closed, and no reason is being given, saying that security concerns is not good enough. The reason, I can tell you for free, is that the Jubilee administration is intent on demobilizing students. You won't be surprised that other universities follow suit after the University of Nairobi. They don't want university students to be in campus during this time when they know that the public anger is boiling over in terms of the way they're managing the country and in terms of the way they are basically responding to the matter of the Supreme Court ruling. So it's a clever way, let me say clever, not so clever way, of demobilizing students who they believe, if left and in the campuses, would obviously add fire to the fuel which is already there. Yeah.
So this is more political than it is on security matters?
No, there's an excuse. Security is an excuse. What security issue? That is Upper Kabete campus, I think. Upper or Lower Kabete campus.
Kabete,
yeah. What security issue? The riots happened in main campus. The police beat up students in main campus. There was no fracas in Lower Kabete, Upper Kabete, or Parklands, or any other campus of the University of Nairobi. So they have got a perfect excuse to close the university.
No.
I wish them well, but it's very fortunate that the parents will continue to shoulder the burden of taking care of these students back at home while they have paid school fees and other needs. Yeah.
Honorable Pkosing?
Victoria, did you listen very carefully? What my brother said.
Yeah, she did.
He's let the cat out of the bag. That they wanted to use university students to make it ungovernable for this coming election. That is the truth. That's what he said. I didn't say. He said. And therefore, if that is the case, in fact, now even more investigation need to be done. Because it means these guys know something that we don't know.
So there are political elements.
Absolutely. And they wanted to use, and now he said himself, they want to use students to be able to cause riots, to implement their no election. You know, Victoria, one day I listened to you, my brother, and I want you to listen to me. Victoria, did you listen to what he said? That there's not going to be election, and they're not giving reasons. Some of the reasons are what he's saying, that they're going to use university students to be able to riot. During the voting day, they want to make Nairobi, people don't vote. And what are they going to use? They're going to use university students. That's what he's saying. And we cannot allow that. In fact, I want to use even this platform to even call for security institutions to further investigate to what extent are some of our university students being used by NASA that they have admitted here.
And when my friend gladly says we can't allow that, I don't know who he's referring to.
As a parent, we can allow our children.
You know, this is an old disease. An old disease of those who are in power, trying to underrate the intelligence of university students. University students are rational human beings. They know what is right and they know what is wrong. They act when they deem it necessary to act. They don't need to be brought by anybody to act in the manner they act. And therefore, it is hogwash again to imagine that we need university students to do our campaigns or to do our mobilization. We have got more than enough people out there, even if we leave out the university students. Yes, we are already agitated enough. Yes, so I don't think that is correct. And I want to urge whoever has made that decision to reverse it and allow our students back in campus to complete their courses on time, to go out there and help us build the nation.
So will NASA use the more than enough people that they have to disrupt the elections come October 26th?
Those are your words, Victoria. NASA doesn't want to disrupt any election. It hasn't said so. And NASA doesn't use people. It is the people who come out and express themselves. Those people happen to be NASA supporters. That is why fine and well and good. Yeah. And the issue of disrupting elections is not there. The issue is that if elections are not being done in a manner dictated by the Constitution and prescribed by the Supreme Court, then they are not there.
So even if you don't push forth these people to go out into the streets, if they do, will you be against that move?
Why would I be against that move? You see, it is a constitutional right for people to demonstrate, to picket, to express themselves, so long as they do it in a peaceful manner. Yeah.
And what if it happens to interrupt the civic duty of others?
It's the duty of the police to protect those others. In fact, it's the duty also of the police to protect those demonstrators first and foremost, to ensure that those demonstrators are protected, they are secured, they are helped, they are marshaled by the police. That's what happens in civilized nations. And to protect those others who are not interested in demonstrating, protect them alongside their properties. Yeah.
Okay, so it's clear that we won't know what exactly happens on October 26th until the day actually comes. But let's move on to a meeting that is expected to happen between President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga with the Iebc. This is a much anticipated meeting that has not happened for weeks. It should be happening today. When we see the two come, will this be an indication of a political goodwill to end the stalemate between Jubilee and NASA, Honorable Pkosing?
Before I say that, Victoria, that's a very good question you are bringing. It's very sad day for me. Absolutely, it's a very sad day that NASA were planning to use our students to disrupt election. And by the way, Victoria, my colleague here, Honorable Wandayi, is not just a normal person in NASA. This is a very serious, highly placed person in NASA. If you want Baba to listen to you or to hear your word, just tell Wandayi here. And by evening, Baba will hear. And therefore, what is speaking actually comes from Baba, that they want to use students. And I want to appeal to them, NASA. And this is now very clear. They are telling us exactly what they're going to do on 26 to disrupt election, subverting election. And that is why I have put in my petition that anybody who will subvert the laws that are provided for and intimidate voters and cause problem and mayhem during the voting day should not come back to seek for invalidation of those results. We are, and we have given them an opportunity to come and debate with us and to come and argue in court. And we are seeking those court orders. So to come into the meeting between the two principals, I'm not going to speak about it until when it happens. You know, then we will be able to say. And our president, the president of the Republic of Kenya, is the president of everybody. He's free to meet anybody, and nobody in this country that is not accessible to the president. So, but after my president has spoken, I'll be able to make a comment. But
generally, is there political goodwill, at least from the Jubilee side, to see this stalemate?
Absolutely. We have 100% political goodwill. They don't have. Victoria, they don't want an election. That is the truth. These guys don't want an election at all. They want to hope to be able to negotiate for a Nusumkate outside the constitution. That is exactly what they are hoping for. We have goodwill, Victoria. The president is the president of the Republic of Kenya. Nobody has blocked for Right Honorable Raila Odinga to seek to meet the president. Nobody has blocked him. And the president has given the avenues where these negotiations are going to be binding. Even if, for example, Victoria, let's say that the president and Right Honorable Raila Odinga meet and talk. Those proposals must come to Parliament. Absolutely, they must come to Parliament. Now, Parliament is accessible for them, but they are refusing. They don't want to come. They want to talk in televisions, while they could have gone to County Hall now and make contributions to the Jeptumo Committee. What they're doing, they're running around to televisions. It doesn't matter. It doesn't help.
You know,
we have goodwill.
My friend is a fairly intelligent man, but I think he's speaking for the wrong people. let me say this. Firstly, on this matter of the elections, okay? We have said time and again that, of course, that we shall go to these elections if they are done in the manner that is acceptable. But again, the question of Nusumkate, which keeps on recurring, you know, it is informed by the warped philosophy of our opponents that government is basically an avenue for sharing bread.
That's what they want.
Our intention to take over state power, our intention for capturing state power, is to be able to implement our very progressive manifesto for the benefit of not only our members, but for the rest of the country. That's our singular intention. To us, government is not simply an avenue for sharing bread. And therefore, the issue of Nusumkate does not arise. Secondly, about the meeting that has been called by Wafula Chebukati between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. You know, I believe Wafula Chebukati has called that meeting, has called those two gentlemen in their capacities as presidential candidates. So Uhuru Kenyatta is not going there as a president of Kenya.
But he's a president of Kenya. He is.
No, if you listen to me, now I'm speaking very plain English. Yes, what I mean, when he goes to meet Wafula Chebukati in Bomas of Kenya, he's going there as a presidential candidate on the Jubilee ticket. Regardless of his other titles outside, okay? Raila Odinga is going there as a presidential candidate for NASA. So I don't think we need to read too much in that meeting. But what I've said is regardless of what transpires in that meeting, you know, Raila Odinga is a product of our coalition. He's the one we have nominated to represent us. We have given him the flag of NASA to run as a presidential candidate on our behalf. So whatever he goes to discuss there must be subject to further discussions within the NASA fraternity. But as we speak, there is no intention of backtracking on our conditions. However, that we have laid out very clearly here.
And I mean, speaking of conditions, because NASA has been accused of shifting goalposts several times. You've asked for some top managers of Iebc to leave. The French firm OT Morpho not to be a player in it. Safaricom, Al Ghurair. Now the DPP has 72 hours to prosecute David's Chirchir. So it seems day in, day out, there's something new that NASA is calling for.
And there'll always be something new in life.
They don't want an election.
Every single day you'll see have something new. And even tomorrow something might emerge. For instance, if today we established that Victoria, God forbid, you are involved in the Iebc shenanigans. What will stop us from calling for your investigation? So these things that are coming up are not anything to worry about. What is critical is that we put in place an infrastructure, a mechanism, a framework that will enable the holding of credible elections. No more, no less.
Honorable Pkosing?
Yes. Who is erecting roadblocks? Who is making the field not flat? It is NASA. They are every day, let me tell you, unless Kenyans appreciate the fact that NASA don't want an election, we will talk forever. They don't want an election. They have said it categorically. They are going to subvert, and that is why, Victoria, because we are enjoying what I call a court bond. We are actually on a bond as a country, in my opinion. The court on 1st September said, hey, you guys, as a country, you are on bond between now and for 60 days. So come back. We are going back to court. And therefore, because we are on court on condition of court bond, and that's why we have sought ourselves more further clarification from the same court, that what happens when one of the candidates does not want. The way now is declaring that they don't want an election. So what happens? The court must pronounce itself. And some of us, we are asking court to exercise Article 183, 138, 1 of the Constitution. Then the country will go on.
But you see again.
Because, Victoria, 1 minute. Well, our imagination as Jubilee and as Kenyans, look what's going on around. Uhuru Kenyatta is going around the country, soliciting for votes, calling people, meeting people, like any other normal candidate. What's happening on the NASA? Press conferences, from one in the house to another. They are not doing any campaign. They are not soliciting for votes. So in an event that, for example, now Uhuru Kenyatta has spent a lot of time as a candidate, moving around and soliciting for votes, he is abiding to the law. And then election is called. Our guys who are waiting in their sitting rooms and moving from one press conference to another will now go to court and nullify that election. Really? Can that happen? What about the right of Uhuru Kenyatta, who is moving around the country soliciting for votes, and somebody is just sitting in his sitting room? That is what we want to protect.
I don't know how far this WAP logic will continue. You know,
but it's true. They are not doing campaign. Where have they gone?
What defines a campaign? You know what defines a campaign?
Nowhere.
In their thinking, a campaign only happens when you call people from all over the country and hire them to State House, and start throwing tirades at Raila Odinga. You know, we have got our own way of campaigning, and we haven't asked Jubilee to assist us in campaigns. And we know when to campaign, how, and whichever form. Okay. So let them give us a break insofar as our campaigns are concerned. Okay? We have done it before, we can do it again, and we know we always do it and beat them in the game. What is important for now is for us to understand that even the 60-day window that the Supreme Court did give the country to undertake another election is not really something that they did out of discretion. It's something which is in the Constitution. The Supreme Court had no option. The minute they annulled that fraudulent election, they had no option rather than to give us another 60 days, which is in the Constitution, really. So even going back to court is neither here nor there. Yes, because the Constitution is very clear. What will happen if there's no election? It's very clear. It's very, very clear. If there's no election, it means something else has to happen.
What's that something else?
Well, really.
What is it?
Well, you see, it's not for me to start educating you on what will happen.
Because we've heard President Uhuru Kenyatta say that he'll remain president until a duly elected president is inaugurated.
I think he's happy that he will continue remaining president forever, so long as there's no election. Okay, wish him well. Yeah, but what he must understand is that he no longer enjoys those powers that an effective president enjoys under ordinary circumstances. That he must understand. That he must understand.
So that's what you've been calling the caretaker.
He is a lame duck president, constitutionally speaking. He's lame duck in the sense that there are things he cannot do. Things he can't do. He can't even appoint a clerk as we speak. It's very clear in the Constitution. He cannot appoint any public officer, which the Constitution requires the president to appoint. He can't. Even his cabinet.
So does that
he can't even transfer anybody.
Does that constitute a power vacuum in the executive?
It's a crisis in the making.
No.
It's a crisis in the making.
Is it a power vacuum in the executive office?
No, but they are denying it. They are trying to suggest that things are normal, things are running normally. Yet, well, we know that Uhuru Kenyatta currently cannot perform some very key functions that a president would ordinarily perform. He can't.
Honorable Pkosing,
he can't even appoint a commissioner of the IEBC.
Let me respond. No, the president has full powers.
Which ones?
Under Article 136, go and read.
Read for us.
I'm not educating you. You should educate yourself, Wandayi. No, you didn't pay me fees to educate you. But under Article 136, the president is enjoying full powers. Why? Because if you look at the requirement of what one article, Article 134, that article in the Constitution is the one that is providing for temporary incumbency. That is precipitated, or that was seen by the Constitution in an event, for example, Victoria, and Kenyans need to listen to this very carefully. In an event that we go for election, normal election, right? That is like, for example, on 8th of August. And then we do an election, then two things happen. That we didn't, that Ariran is called. You know, that is temporary. Because any of them can become a president. Ariran is a short term. It doesn't oversee maybe like more than 3 months. It's a short term thing. But in an event when an election is called under Article 140, subsection 3, which is by Supreme Court, it annulled the election, meaning it has taken us back to 8. And when you have taken us back then to 8 in an understanding of an election, then the president is going back to enjoy his powers fully as prescribed under Article 136. And Wandayi, I thought Wandayi was really informed in NASA. Today I think I'm being disapproved. I'm absolutely disapproved that Wandayi is not well informed. That the president now enjoys full powers as provided for under Article 136. It's clear. That was annulled. There's no reference to the last election. For example, Victoria, and for a normal Kenyan. We cannot now say, let us go and refer to the last election, because it was annulled. So where are we? We are back at 8. In terms of time of election, we are back at 8 of August, and therefore the president is enjoying full power. 100%.
Okay.
God forbid. If this is the kind of legal advice Jubilee gets, then we are in trouble as a country.
Which trouble now?
Right.
Serious trouble as a country.
Hold that thought. We need to take a short break. It is almost 11 o'clock, top of the hour. You're watching Decision 2017. This conversation continues. Stay with us.
I'm doubting you on that now.
Welcome back. You're watching Decision 2017. My name is Victoria Rubadiri. Still with me in studio, Honorable Pkosing, the Pokot South MP, and Opiyo Wandayi, the MP for Ogunja. Thank you for staying with me. Staying on this conversation of the election laws, because of course today there is public participation happening. There's been an argument, however, Honorable Pkosing, that the election laws will hinder the Iebc from preparing properly for the October 26th elections. You mentioned earlier that the only roadblocks to the October 26th elections have been brought by NASA. However, some argue that this could also serve as a roadblock as well.
Absolutely no. And let us not bring propaganda into what is the truth. Because if you look at how does it hinder? When you're saying that presiding officer must sign these things, how does that hinder the election itself? It doesn't hinder. That is, to me, that's a propaganda. This is actually to facilitate a smooth, a transparent, accurate, simple, very simple, and verifiable. Because we are saying, apart from the you scanning and sending on electronic, which is provided for, bring the form that is very simple, Victoria. Very simple. Okay, bring that form, sign it, Form 34A, which is from polling station, sign it, and then aggregate it in Form 34B at the constituency, and then bring it. It is simple, verifiable, and accurate. That is what we are providing. How does that hinder election? It doesn't.
Because some of the provisions within, having to implement them, wouldn't that cause IEBC having to focus on that away from preparations?
No, like what I've just given as an example. What will they focus? They will only now tell in their training, which they have given a schedule of training. They will not train their presiding officers and say, look, you know what, should you make a mistake in filling those forms, you are personally culpable on that account. How will that hinder the election, Robert? This is just shenanigans and propaganda of our brothers from the other side, making sure that they are raising more roadblocks so that we don't have an election on 26th.
You know, Victoria, managing an election is a very complex affair. And it's unfortunate our colleagues don't seem to appreciate that. And when you say these proposed amendments will interfere with the preparations, it is true. Because even if you say that you now insist that the physical Form 34As or whatever they are go to Bomas, And currently, as we speak, the Iebc should be training the clerks, or they should be preparing to train them. That aspect needs to be in the training manual. So what time will they have to redo this training? That is one. So, but I also said, without really missing the point, that the upshot, the totality of these amendments is to create avenues for theft of elections. If you look at what has happened in the past in this country, whenever changes to the election framework or laws or regulations have happened, they've always happened under an environment of bipartisan engagement. Way back as 1997, my friend Pkosing, I'm sure, was active, wherever he was, either in the seminary or whichever place. Even when Moi was at his tyrannical best in 1997, when we launched the no reform, no elections clamor, he came to the negotiating table under the auspices of the IEPPG then. And in the 2007, post 2007, 2008, we went back to the drawing board through a bipartisan process to look at the election framework. Early this year or late last year, we did the same thing. So what we are saying is that there is nothing really out of the ordinary that would motivate Jubilee to go about reforming the electoral laws or processes unilaterally. It only speaks of bad faith, ill intention, and autocratic tendencies, which are slowly taking root in this country. And we are saying that it is the responsibility and the duty of every patriotic Kenyan to resist attempts by a few people to reverse the clock of change or to take back the country to its very dark past history.
Well,
Yes.
Honorable Wandayi, we heard Honorable Pkosing invite you and your NASA counterparts to come for the public participation going on now. Are they willing to do that?
You know, once we have said that that process is not proper, the very fact that they have formed an ad hoc committee comprising of MPs from the Jubilee side alone invalidates that process. So on what basis shall you be appearing before that committee?
No.
To do what? Let me just complete, my friend. On what basis shall you be appearing before a Jubilee committee? How? How on earth? So whatever they're doing at County Hall, as we speak, could only be a Jubilee process. And mark my words, that so-called ad hoc committee, joint ad hoc committee, is nothing but a Jubilee committee. And whatever it is deliberating upon there, even if it ends up on the floor of the House, shall be treated as a Jubilee product and shall be dealt with appropriately at the right time.
So there's nothing within the confines of the law or legislative processes that NASA will do to try and stop this? Well, it's almost like you're giving them a wide berth to do what they want to.
We haven't said we won't stop it. What we have said is that we cannot appear before that committee to give it the legitimacy that it definitely lacks. But stopping it, we shall do in our own ways, which I want to delve into here. Yeah.
Why not?
No. Strategic.
They have no way.
Strategic, yeah. We shall definitely stop them in their tracks, yeah.
So will you stop it before it's assented to? At which stage will you stop these election changes?
You know, my friend Victoria, we are in this for the long haul. Let's not look at this thing as a 100 meters sprint, okay? Even if they went ahead and did the enactment and who assented to those things, and they did their election on 26th, their election, yeah. Yeah. Kenyans have a way of managing the situation, yeah. Yeah, and I'm very serious. You know, when I talk, I don't just talk anyhow. My friend here knows. Yeah.
So when you say Kenyans have a way of managing the situation?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, because it appears that there are a few people in this country who have got some very false sense of entitlement. And they keep on talking of Kenya moving forward, the country. Forgetting that this country belongs to everybody, including me, Wandayi. I've got an equal stake in this country, just like Uhuru Kenyatta, by the way. Equal stake. He might have more resources because of historical reasons. Yes. Okay. But I've got equal stake as a citizen of this country. And therefore, you cannot talk of Kenya moving forward to my exclusion.
Honorable
Yes.
Pkosing.
Victoria, I think it's also another unfortunate day. Again, because my colleague here, Honorable Wandayi, who was elected by the good people, to come and try to cast aspersion on a committee of the House. He should be aware of the Privileges Act, which of course, he suffered one day when he brought Philippines, and he got his nomination. But let me read for him this, and I think for the nation and also for you, Victoria. The Constitution, Article 124 says, each House of Parliament may establish a committee. That committee, which is sitting in County Hall now, has a constitutional mandate. By the fact that my colleague here, Honorable Wandayi, is saying that committee has no mandate and therefore we are not going to appear, actually they're breaking the Constitution themselves. Absolutely. That committee is legitimately, and it has full mandate of the Constitution by being there. Everything was done that was required for them to be done under Article 124 of the Constitution. That is number one that Kenyans need to understand, that committee is there fully with mandate. Number two, I want also to advise my friend, these ideas of, they are very dishonest. These guys are very dishonest. And I know what they're addressing. Victoria, if you come to Parliament now, there is a standoff, and particularly on the other side. They don't know who to give which positions. And the problem now, talking with them between now and until when the positions are given out, they are campaigning, Even from the media, this side, they are campaigning so that Baba sees who to give what. And therefore, they will be very hard because they are looking for seats. I'm also told that Wandayi is looking for one of them. So, but in that dishonesty, look, Victoria, a committee legitimately established by Parliament is sitting in County Hall. And these guys are running around. Like, for example, the proposal is saying that, these guys, maybe this Form 34A or Form 34B should have been done like this. What would have been meaningful is for what Wandayi is talking about in the media now here to the people of Kenya, should have gone to County Hall and tell them, you know what, these guys, this is what it's supposed to, they provide an alternative. But what's happening? They are moving around, and yet the process, and the process is going on. That process, I want to say, it's legitimate, and it will produce a legitimate law for this country.
There is a tragedy in reading specific articles of the Constitution in isolation. One thing one must understand is the philosophy underpinning this Constitution of ours. This Constitution is a people product, and it recognizes that Kenya is a multi-party democracy. Indeed, the various articles of this Constitution are actualized by the statutes and even the standing orders, which standing orders also recognize that those committees, for them to be formed, require membership from both sides of the House. So the fact that the Parliament violated that requirement in constituting the House Business Committee, which has given rise to these other ad hoc things, it does not make it any better. And therefore, those proceedings going on at County Hall are illegal. Let me tell you. In fact, they are unconstitutional. And in the fullness of time, I'll be vindicated. They are unconstitutional, so we have no business of making representations before them. We shall deal with their processes at the right time, in our own way, okay? Which I want to delve into here, because my friend here will snoop around and start going to find a mechanism of...
But is Honorable Pkosing right when he says that a lot of the inner wrangles in NASA are distracting NASA from actually engaging Jubilee or any other party?
Which wrangles? Those are imaginations.
What do you mean?
Which wrangles are in NASA? NASA is a very cohesive movement led by the revolutionary Raila Amolo Odinga. You see? One of the largest political movements of our times. So there's no wrangle. And if they were to be there, they would be resolved amicably through our mechanisms. If there are wrangles, they could only be in Jubilee. I don't see any wrangles in NASA. And therefore, what we are talking about should not be really be trivialized. We're talking about very serious issues that as things stand, unless reason prevails, unless common sense prevails, firstly on the Jubilee side, and secondly on the side of the Iebc, then we have headed for a serious crisis.
Okay, speaking of those two sides, let's cross over to Andrew Ocheng at the Bomas of Kenya. He's standing by as we await the arrival of President Uhuru Kenyatta and the NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga to meet with the Iebc there. Andrew, what can you tell us at this moment?
Well, thank you, Victoria. Any minute from now, we expect the NASA principals and the NASA presidential candidate to arrive here at the Bomas of Kenya. They are the ones who will meet the Iebc first. That is what we understand from what has been going on here. From what we've gathered, there won't be a joint meeting of all the political sides. So first to meet the Iebc will be the NASA side, led by the presidential candidate Raila Odinga, who we expect to come here just any minute from now, from that path where you see that car driving through. The president, we understand, will be coming later on in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. That's what we've managed to gather so far. That's what I was saying. That's why I was saying that it won't be a joint meeting of the two. Very surprising, because initially, from what we've been gathering so far, there have been there was supposed to be joint meetings. Remember earlier on last week, the meetings that aborted because of the laws, the amendments to the election laws that are in Parliament. There were joint meetings then, but with the big bosses now meeting, it will be a separate meeting. Remember, Iebc also said that during those meetings, he said that going forward, they will be specifically meeting the presidential candidates themselves and not their representatives. Remember, it was interesting. At some point on the first day of that meeting, when the representatives met for about 30 minutes, then had to break for more than 3-4 hours as they went to consult their leaders. So that is the program for today. Is, as I have just stated, that is what is going to happen. We don't know whether any of those political sides will be addressing us and finding out whether they've reneged on any of the tough grounds that they've been holding so far. Remember, NASA has its list of 11 irreducible minimums. Jubilee has the amendments to the election laws that are that the public participation process is going on right now in Parliament. So when the leaders of those two main coalitions come, we'll be also attempting to find out whether they will be stepping back with the demands they had held so far. But going forward, we will be hoping to get from the Iebc what both sides have agreed on the way the elections should be held. Remember, from the Commission's side, they have been saying that they do not need any laws to conduct the fresh presidential election. They have just gone back and relooked at their processes and found out where they went wrong and where the Supreme Court told them to correct, and they have said that they will be correcting those in the fresh presidential election, which will be held on the 26th of October as of now. Victoria?
Andrew, I don't know if you've managed to get a sneak peek or any word on what the agenda looks like for that particular meeting.
Well, of course, the agenda since last week, the agenda has always been first of all, the accountability, the staff that NASA wants to be removed from the commission and whom, according to the Supreme Court ruling and according to NASA, played a part and probably were negligent and were impartial or just played any part that led to the nullification of the presidential election results. Remember, they had a list of people whom they wanted to be held accountable, and they've also even taken a list. Remember, yesterday they started private prosecution of some of these individuals. So one of them is the accountability that should take place before the fresh election is held by Iebc staff. Number two, of course, and the key in this process has been the issue of the service providers and the suppliers to Iebc. NASA has been saying that some of the faults that were realized in the Supreme Court were because the suppliers and the service providers failed to honor their contracts properly. And in this case, there is, of course, the IT suppliers, Safran Mofo. There is the supplier of the service provider of the network, that is Safaricom, which NASA has been totally against. And then, of course, there is the printer of the ballot papers, that is Al Ghurair, whom they allege is the one who led to the printing of the ballot papers which did not have security features. So these, of course, we expect to feature prominently in the agenda. And, of course, the biggest issue which will feature in the agenda is the amendments to the election laws that Jubilee forwarded and has been carrying out at the moment, where the public participation is currently taking place. So we expect that all these issues which affect the election going forward will be part of the agenda, and just the two sides harmonizing and seeing how to go through. Remember, the position of the Iebc has always been that it will retain all the service providers, it will retain all the suppliers, it will reshuffle the returning officers and ensure that they are moved to different areas. It has said that it is sort of rejigging the KIMS kit so that to ensure that the identification of voters and the transmission of results is more seamless this time round. Those are the things that it has been saying, and so those are the issues that we expect to be part of the agenda. One other key issue we also expect to be part of the agenda is the two sides forwarding a list of individuals to be part of the core ICT team that will be handling the fresh presidential election. Remember, the Iebc chairman already formed a special projects team that will be handling the fresh poll. and requested both sides to forward IT technicians who will be part of this process. So we expect that that will be also part of the agenda, and probably the two sides will be giving names of individuals whom they wish to be part of that list, to be part of that special project team and part of the IT team of the results transmission process.
All right, thanks, Andrew Ocheng there, the Bomas of Kenya, as we preempt that meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. We hear that the president will be coming later in the afternoon. And this almost seems like the script that we saw 2 weeks ago when the Jubilee party came late to a meeting at Anniversary Towers. NASA left well before and said because their counterparts were not there, they could not meet. Are we likely to see something like this today, Honorable Pkosing?
I can't speak about that. I'm not going to speak about that because, one, the president is the president of the Republic of Kenya, and he has a lot of activities. I'm very certain about that for the country. And if it's 3 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock. What is the problem with it? It is within the day, you know. So I am not reading too much about that, and I should not also make the country to read too much about that. It's just like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 8 o'clock.
So time is relative in this case?
It depends on when somebody is available. And if you told us to come at about 11, so we are here 11. It can also be pushed to 12. Why are we reading too much about that?
Honorable Wandayi.
Well, you see, I said earlier on here, Victoria, that Kenyans seem to be having too much expectations from this so-called meeting between the Iebc and the presidential candidates. It's just like any other meeting that the Iebc would hold with candidates of whatever nature, be they parliamentary, gubernatorial, and so on and so forth. And therefore, I personally, I don't have a lot of interest in those shenanigans. My position, and that I think is the position of my coalition, is that regardless of what time people meet, where, okay, for how long, our irreducible minimum conditions have to be met.
So will this meeting help end the stalemate in your estimation? You're saying people have high expectations, nothing much will come out of it.
Yeah, but you see, if you are calling a meeting between the parties, and one party is already going ahead with some process aimed at mutilating the electoral laws in County Hall, what goodwill is there to necessitate meaningful discussions? So it's a waste of time, if you ask me. This is my personal opinion now. It's a total waste of time. The meeting of those conditions we have set out don't require, that doesn't require any face-to-face meeting. If they could meet them even without a meeting between the Raila and Uhuru and Chebukati, so be it. But I'm afraid we are running out of time.
So if the electoral law changes were off the table, there would be more hope for this stalemate to end, in your view?
It would be a demonstration of good faith. But that will not obviously address the 11 conditions, the 11 irreducible minimum conditions. But it will be a demonstration of good faith. Yeah, so the ball is on their court, I've said. The ball is in the court of Iebc and Jubilee. It's their business what they do with it.
So, Honorable Pkosing, what is Jubilee doing with that ball?
Yes.
For lack of a better term.
You know, there is a mistake which we are being pushed to and want to refuse. We don't speak on behalf of Iebc, and Iebc is not Jubilee. That's, my friend here should know very clearly. We don't speak on behalf of Jubilee. Who says that Jubilee is, who says that Iebc is Jubilee? Jubilee is a political party, which is a competitor with NASA. And therefore, Iebc is an independent institution. They have their calendar, they have the law, they have the mandate. We don't speak on their behalf. We, on the part of Jubilee, we are ready for election. We've said categorically, and our leader said, His Excellency the President has said, we might not agree with what came from Supreme Court, but we respect it, and that is why we have gone around the country soliciting for votes. But our guys, they don't want the election, Victoria. The country should know that. These guys don't want an election. They are raising all these roadblocks. Now they are running the other side. They are bringing the so-called 11 commandments for themselves and saying that has to be done. If you don't do that, we will do this. How? You're bringing your own. You're actually making your own field untenable for yourself. So I think, Victoria, these guys are not honest. They are dishonest. In fact, of course, now my brother here, you've seen what he's saying. that they don't want an election. They want an sumukate serikali. And I'm looking at the constitution. I'm saying, where is it coming from? How would that be achieved in that in legal terms?
We have a new term for the irreducible minimums, the 11 commandments.
That's what I say. Yeah, that's what I say.
And speaking of more conditions, the NASA coalition wants the Director of Public Prosecutions, Keriako Tobiko, to institute criminal charges against 6 top managers of Safaricom for allegedly having been part of the electoral offenses during the August 8th general election that eventually led to the nullification of the presidential vote. Well, NASA is threatening to begin private prosecutions on the individuals if the DPP fails to take steps within 72 hours. Kemi Jungo reports.
The names given by NASA for consideration of prosecution are Thibadu Rero, a French national who is also the Director Technical and Information Technology, Anthony Gashanja, the Head of Technology Security, Shaka Kwach, Head of Special Projects in charge of elections, Robert Mutai, Head of Technology, Strategy, Assurance and Governance, Farouk Gafour, Head of Network and Service Operations, Andrew Masila, Senior Manager Strategy and Architecture, and a David Chirchir. True lawyer Anthony Oloch, NASA says that unless investigations leading into criminal charges and prosecution is commenced within 72 hours, the party will institute private prosecution against the Safaricom officers. In a letter to the DPP, NASA alleges that there will be accused individuals allegedly committed criminal acts of which they should be held personally liable. Further, NASA alleged the officials aided or abetted the commission of the offences under the Election Offences Act and breached the Constitution. The offences, the lawyer says, are said to have been committed during the existence of the contract between Safaricom and Iebc in providing safe passage for data and results from the KM's kits to a remote server based in France. The lawyer says draft criminal charges against the Safaricom staff have been drafted and drawn awaiting action by the DPP, and they are not the only ones. NASA also wants action taken against Iebc officers, including the Chief Executive Officer for flouting the election laws, and maintains they will not go to an election with the current structures. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
All right, so we had talked about these conditions earlier, but I just want to get Honorable Pkosing's reaction to this. More conditions added to what you now term the 11 commandments from NASA.
They call it 11 commandment, Rubadiri. But again, that is a new, those are still roadblocks. And I will still continue saying, and I'll say it even if you call me here 100 times, that NASA are not interested with the coming election. And that is why we have gone back to court under my petition, to be able to seek court's redress. And we are trying to ask court, now there is a problem, you know, and because this ball is within your court, please play it well, and play it remembering that this is a country. We have one country called Kenya, you know, we have one people, and we have the future for this country. So now that the courts are players, and very serious players going forward, they must also pronounce themselves to that. Because we will talk ourselves from this side, or the political side, we will talk forever. They will create another one. Remember, my brother, whom I respect very much, said, even if tomorrow something else comes, we'll bring, which means they have more other commandments still coming. They have lined up a lot of commandments, making sure that the election is not going to happen on 26th. Okay. We must find an exit strategy different from the political arena. Honorable
Wandayi, your closing remarks?
Yeah, okay, really. There's nothing much to say about that, because I've said before that if new issues emerge, we shall obviously address them. Yeah, that is in line with our thinking. But then there's something I want to say, because yesterday we had the foreign envoys speak. The envoys from the European Union, countries, and America did speak. We heard them. But I also want to say that part of the reason why we are where we are currently is because of the rush by some of the people who came into this country as observers during the 8th of August elections. And these people, most of them, or some of them, did come from these countries, the European Union and America. And it is their rush to give that election a clean bill of health that perhaps compelled Wafula Chebukati to do a premature declaration of the results. Had they heeded our complaints then, these observers, who represent their countries anyway, perhaps we wouldn't be where we are currently. And therefore, even as they issue threats of intended sanctions or what you have you against specific people, they must also delve into their conscience and understand that they are not very clean, so to speak. But then, again, another thing I must say is that we cannot simply go to these elections because of the sanctions which have been threatened and assume everything else that we've been talking about. You know, the preconditions for a free, credible, fair election are a must. They must be met, regardless of any other threats that could be coming from whatever quarters. So I want to appeal to our friends, the foreign envoys, because I know they represent their countries. They represent primarily the interests of the countries that have sent them to this country. That even as they pursue the interests of their countries, they must understand that we Kenyans have got a higher stake in this country, and we need to be helped to manage our affairs properly. We need to be assisted. Assistance we need, but that assistance should not come as a way of making us lower the threshold for free and fair election.
So that assistance in what form?
Well, they've always given us technical assistance. They've always given us human resource assistance. They've given us a lot of assistance in the past, this international community. Okay? We still look forward to the assistance in whichever form it can come to help us buttress our democracy. Okay? Yeah, but let us not lower the bar simply because we want to tick the box, as it were, and move on.
So you wouldn't be against
that
the involvement of the UN, for instance, in helping with the elections?
No, if it's within a framework which is agreeable to everybody, who says no? Okay? But that is not the point. The point I'm saying is that the envoy should not be seen to be pushing us to a corner, to accept something which we believe is not right. That is going to an election, or having an election which is not going to be free and fair and credible. That's the point, yeah.
Okay. Honorable Pkosing, your closing remarks before we...
Yeah, closing remarks. and before I make that closing remark, Victoria, they have introduced 12th commandment. This one now, the new one of Safaricom and so on, taking them to court. And already is insinuating to introduce another 13th one tomorrow. Don't be surprised that these guys will now go to or ask or write to DPP to investigate observers. You know, they are moving out of proportion completely. And my closing remarks will be like this. Number one is that I'm advising the other side of NASA, and I'm calling them as let us remember our country. We have one country, and we have our children. Let us remember that. That should be on top of the agenda. Number two is that now that we are playing within the court or within the playfield of court, because it is court that this election is a court driven, and therefore we are also asking the same court to be aware and to be alive to the situation that should need be to save this country. It is up to themselves now to save the country. Three, that Wandayi has just said a very dangerous statement here, which I want to ask our children in universities. Please do not participate in politics. And I'm asking also security agencies to investigate what NASA knows, that now they are saying that the university students are going to be used to be able to mobilize and subvert the election. That is a dangerous move, and we are advising our children. And that's why when I say we,